Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm doing a little bit of a book recommendation video, and I was just thinking about books that just completely lend themselves into the idea of indie movies. And to me, an indie movie is low budget, so that means small cast of characters, some small sets, like no huge action pieces or anything like that. Normally quite a character based story, like nothing that's gonna cost a lot of money to make, and then also just the atmosphere and the aesthetics and the visual elements are what I really think of when I think of indie movies. I think of them as being a little bit more artistic, a little bit more free to be creative. So when it comes to books, obviously small cast of characters and like a few small settings is kind of the same, but then instead of aesthetics and visuals, it's more like the writing style and how descriptive it is, that type of thing that just really like sucks you into the book and makes you feel like you're really into this atmosphere and into this setting. And again, the settings are normally, just like a house or like outdoors or a school, like nothing that's like going to cost a lot of money and be like a lot of high budget. So I just thought I would make a little list of books that when I was reading them, I could really just visualize them so clearly as indie movies in my head is like that definition of what an indie movie is. And hopefully you find some good recommendations from this video. So I also just have to say it is very, very windy here today. So if you hear any noise, it's the wind. And then also I haven't scripted this video at all, which I normally kind of do a little bit. So if I'm a little bit more rambly than usual, I apologize. But if you enjoy this video, please leave a like and please subscribe. And definitely leave some recommendations down below for any other books that you think fit this kind of description of indie movie. So the book that kind of gave me the idea for this video is White Oleander by Janet Fitch. And this is about a young girl, Astrid, whose mother murders her ex-boyfriend. And this means that Astrid goes into the foster care system and goes through a lot of different foster homes, and lots of traumatic things happen. It is like a heavy trigger warning book. There's so many like sad situations and scenarios that Astrid is put in, and every single time she goes to a new home, you're like praying that this one will be like the home for her, and then it just never is. And it really is a story about trauma and forgiveness and like mother-daughter relationships and how they are not always like the loving, perfect thing that they should be. And overall, this book just completely gave me the indie movie vibes because it is just although there is a lot of supporting characters through the different foster parents, it's still not a huge cast, and it's a very much a character study of Astrid and her mother. And I don't know what's happening there. Yeah, so it's very much a character study of Astrid going through life, growing up in these horrible situations and these horrible different homes with horrible things happening to her. I keep saying the word horrible. And also just like you really add exploration into her mind. And then obviously the settings, it's lots of like different houses, so just lots of different homes that she goes to, and she does go between quite a few of them, but they're all like enclosed sets, like just normal family homes for the most part. And then as for the atmosphere, this book, the writing is so beautiful. So Astrid and her mother are both artists. I think Astrid is also a poet, or her mother's a poet, and you can really tell this through the way that Janet Fitch writes the book. It is so lyrical and just beautifully written. A little bit flubbery, but not, pretentiously. Just like a really nice, flowing, descriptive book. And I just absolutely loved it. I just felt like it was beautifully written, and the story was heartbreaking, and Astrid was such an interesting character to follow and just watch her grow up. So I would definitely highly recommend this book. And although I did say it is a little bit flubbery, I do think that it works in the book's favour, and it is just a beautiful book. The next book I have is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. And this is a book about some Native American men who kill a baby elk, I'm pretty sure it is. And they should not have done this. One, because it is a child, but then two, because they should not even be hunting in this area. And then a few years later, the spirit of the elk comes back to haunt the men, and the story gets very gory. It's very much a horror novel, which I didn't even realise when I started reading it, but it is very gory at parts. It's quite spooky, and this spooky atmosphere is what really gave me the idea to put it into this video. So I think that horror movies are like perfect for low budget indie movies. I think the higher a budget a horror movie has, the less scary it is. The genre kind of thrives off of like low budget and Some of the best movies were made with like crews of like 5 people, like Evil Dead, for example. So I think that the atmosphere of this book is so creepy, but then also just very much the settings are all outdoors a lot of the time. There's some scenes in some houses. There's like a scene in a school like gym, but for the most part, it's like men out in the fields, set in like a Native American community, and just everything about it like really gives you like the small enclosed set like indie movie vibes that I feel matter. Again, the cast of characters is quite small. It is a group of men that are friends. There's obviously some extra supporting characters, but the main cast is, I think, 4 men that are friends and just then like trying to overcome this horrible situation that is coming to them because of something they did in the past. The writing style as well is very descriptive, I think, but not flowery at all, not like oleander, so not like flowery, but just very descriptive and really sucks you into the Native American community and makes you feel like you're there with these men, and then that paired with the creepiness of the horror elements is just like a perfect blend in my opinion. This next book I feel a little bit biased because I read it when I was about 15 and I watched the movie at the same time, so I think that I always put the movie and the book together upon rereading it, and I really can't read the book without seeing the movie, so it's a lot about cheating, but that is The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides, and I don't know how you say his surname. I literally looked up a pronunciation guide for doing my wrap up and I don't know, but this is a book about a family where all 5 teenage girls commit suicide, and you are following the story from a group of like adolescent boys that are their neighbours that are kind of obsessed with the girls, and it is very much a character study again. It is set in like a small town. The main setting is just the girls' house, the narrator's house, like the boys are watching them, and then the school. And I think that it works so well just having these few settings because the story is like very closed, like very much just exploring these girls. I was going to say exploring these girls' heads, but you're from an outside narrator, so it's not really, but it's like viewing the situation of suicide in a small town through the eyes of young teenagers, and especially it is set in like the 1960s, 1970s type of era, and that really lends itself as well to the aesthetic, I think. So when it comes to the description, it is a very descriptive novel. I wouldn't call this one flowery, I would just say it's very descriptive, and it really sucks you into the house that they live in as time goes on and the family kind of becomes more reclusive because of the stuff that is going on. The house starts to decay around them, and I think that is like really interesting to watch progress throughout the story, like the evolution of the house from this lovely suburban family home into kind of a house of horrors. And overall, I just think it's like a really beautifully written book. However, I do think that, I said this in my wrap up, it is very slow, so you have to be prepared for the descriptiveness of the book. Is not really, there's not that much of a plot. Like there's stuff that happens at the start, something that happens around the 2-quarter mark, and then stuff happens in the last like 15 pages. But there's a long period of time where there's not much happening in the book, so you have to be prepared for that. But it definitely just gives me that indie movie vibe of, you know, the small settings with this family and then just the descriptiveness of the writing. The final book I'm going to talk about is The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich, and this is the story of a Native American woman who is raped, and we are told the story through the perspective of her young son, so it's also kind of a coming of age story, but then with this horrific incident happening to his mother in the background and how that affects him growing up, then also just affects their family, and it is handled really well, I think, because you wouldn't really expect the perspective of this serious story to be from the eyes of a young boy. And I think Louise Erdrich just makes it work really perfectly. I don't think that many authors could have really pulled this story off, but she does so. And it is very much, again, a character study. It is a very closed, so the cast of characters is mostly just this young boy, his dad, and his mum, and then his friends. So it's a very small cast of characters. The settings, again, there's a lot of outdoors. I think that is maybe a recurring theme in Native American stories. Any that I have read, there's been a lot of emphasis on the outdoors. So that happens again, and then it's also just like in the house. So again, just small settings, quite descriptive. You really get like the atmosphere of being in these settings through the story. especially just like the young boy when he's with his friends, the way that they explore and stuff and get up to some incidents, really just makes you feel like you're there with them. And again, the writing style is not flowery, I would say, but just very descriptive. Again, like I just said, really sucks you into the atmosphere, but then also really makes you feel all the emotions of this heavy story, because obviously this is a very heavy topic. It is all about the rape of this woman and her trauma and her kind of shutting everyone out because of it. And then also the young boy growing up with this incident. And I just think that it's such an emotionally heavy story, but you really feel everything that the characters feel. You really feel like you're there with them in this house, especially when the mother really starts to shut everyone out and just does not leave her bedroom. You really feel like you're there in that house, in that stifling atmosphere where nobody really knows what to do or what to say. And it is a very emotionally taxing book, I think, but really important and just very beautifully written as well. And I like I said, don't think anyone other than Louise Erdrich could have wrote this, but again, it just gives me the indie movie vibes because of the small setting, the small cast of characters, and then just like the descriptiveness and then also the emotional heaviness of this story. Hopefully at least one of these books sounds good to you and you will add it to your TBR and give it a try. If I was going to rank the books in order of like my most favourite to my least favourite, I would say White Oleander, The Roundhouse, The Only Good Indians, and then The Virgin Suicides, in that order I would say are my most favourite to my least favourite. But they're all good books and I wouldn't be talking about them in this video if they weren't. So if any of them sounded interesting to you, definitely let me know down below. Also, like I said at the start, if you can think of any books that you think kind of fits this indie movie vibe, let me know as well. I do enjoy like descriptive writing as long as it's not like over the top, like pointlessly descriptive. I do enjoy descriptiveness and floweriness to an extent, so definitely let me know any recommendations of yours in the comments. Please leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it and hit the subscribe button if you want some more videos. I have quite a few ideas for videos coming up in February, which I talked about in my February TBR, so if you want to check that out, go ahead. But without any further rambling, thank you so much for watching and I will see you in my next video.